Cyberpunk, steampunk, dieselpunk, atompunk. You may have noticed a pattern in the following phrases. Many mediums of art, literature, and entertainment have taken to adopting these terms to describe their worlds. They act as pre-constructed elemental descriptor that often forms the foundation for the world building that the creator intended. Furthermore, they offer a potential consumer a clear and understandable catch-all term for what they can expect both tonally and aesthetically from said entertainment. It is this primitive allocation of former values and art style that can offer the necessary push that its story needs in order to hammer home its ideas. Hello, I'm Noah, your humble narrator, and this is a video on futuristic aesthetics as defined by era. The use of punk as a suffix has been in use ever since the early 80s into today. With the influx of fictional settings that are created and the increasingly vivid stylization of those worlds comes the ever-expanding desire to categorize and organize those styles into specific archetypes. First came the label of cyberpunk, and then steampunk, and the derivatives spiraled forever onward. The result of all of this was the birth of speculative fiction. It is noteworthy that the use of speculative futurism has had a long history throughout entertainment and literature. Many influential artists and storytellers would contribute towards the hyper-historical fictionalization of futurism. It is arguable who truly dropped the first punk bombshell, but many others, including myself, would start with the works of Philip K. Dick. Though not the first to be recognized as punk in suffixation, Cyberpunk 1983 would claim this trophy both in title and in style. Many of Dick's novels would prove to be the initial spark necessary to entice future works. Dick's book, The Man in the High Castle, 1962, for instance, is hard to visualize without applying the dieselpunk style to it. In it, the reader is forced to come to terms with the possibility of an Axis victory during World War II and the effects that it would have on an America in the 60s. The optimistic American lifestyle of our 1960 would crumble under the might of tyrannical German and imperial Japanese oppressors. To further recognize the vast scope of Philip K. Dick's works, we must jump to our next contender, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, 1968, which would act as the true domino to set in motion the entirety of the quasi-futuristic aesthetics. Its adaptation to film would only prove to solidify the style and tone of the cyberpunk formula in the years that followed. This rise in fiction based around alternative futurism would pose a variety of questions to many. Is science fiction entertainment from any given previous decade also considered to be punk? Would, for instance, the Jetsons, 1962 to 1963, be considered atompunk, or would the given media have to be created in a post-decade era, effectively making it a period piece? Does a given piece of media have to be dystopian in order to be considered for the punk suffix? All of this can be further delineated and scrutinized through a close look at the characteristics of punk. Some of these characteristics are hard to pinpoint as the terminology has become a bit of a culturally driven experiment. In short, the punk suffix implies a state of marginalization directed at a group in the given world being proposed by a creator. There is something at stake, and the world is imperfect, as often is the case in any engaging story. Either the society is dystopian, as is often the case with cyberpunk and dieselpunk aesthetic styles, or the worldviews of our protagonists are under attack by some greater opposing force. Atompunk has the best of both worlds when it comes to this, having been an aesthetic style plucked from the height of the happy-go-lucky 50s and 60s. This can alternatively be supplemented by elements of Cold War paranoia, atomic obsession, and even total devastation of humanity through nuclear bombardment. We've seen this apocalyptic twist many times in the media we consume, with franchises like Fallout. Additionally, the idea of works being considered punk to their given aesthetic is entirely dependent upon a variety of circumstances. Is the media representative of what people might have thought the future to be like in that era? Is there a form of opposition for the disenfranchised to overcome? Often it is best to take it on a case-by-case basis, as each derivative of cyberpunk seems to have its own list of requirements. With a plethora of various versions to explore, it can become difficult to fully grasp the entirety of punks already established. Some of the more prominent types include cyberpunk, steampunk, dieselpunk, atompunk, raypunk, decopunk, and even rococo punk. Instances of each are not always easy to come across, as most pieces of science fiction remain hesitant to associate as one, with some acting as hybridizations of multiple punks. The original BioShock video game, for instance, is often considered to be steampunk, even though it contains an obvious World War II-era aesthetic and film noir imagery with Art Deco architecture and design elements. For this reason, some consider it to be a healthy blend of decopunk and dieselpunk. It is because of these loosely stylized cultural landmarks that many have taken to throwing out punk labels altogether. For myself and many others, though, these aesthetic and tonally coherent subgenres of science fiction offer a glimpse at an inescapable truth. This is that we often tend to feed off of the nostalgia of eras we had no part in. Even when looking towards the future, we still consider the past. It is an inescapable aspect of humanity. We make judgments based off of prior knowledge and experience. This includes what we have learned from the history books. This isn't a fault of our species, as we have taken great strides in constantly revolutionizing our idea of the future. It is our curiosity regarding the possibility of what might have been that immortalizes our endeavor to seek out what could be. Because of this, I believe we need our punk subgenres, so that we may better understand both thematically and visually what steers our curiosity and makes us yearn to innovate. In closing, it seems only fitting that we try a little exercise in categorizing some of our favorite films and books. Look at some of the following and let me know where you think each of the narratives best fit aesthetically.